Hello, my name is Anuj Pakvasa. Here's my photo ID passport, um, and I will present my presentation. It is the Brompton case study, prompt number 3 for economics. Um, Here is a graph of the UK bicycle market after the EU anti-dumping tariff of 48.5% on Chinese imports was abolished. Um, with the introduction of Chinese supply, the AS shifts down and out, increasing sales and lowering price. Um, Let me move this. And so there are exogenous variables, just non-market forces with internal to the bike market, and that would be the exchange rates. The euro appreciated 25% from 2016 to 2020. The yuan also appreciated only 5%, but still significantly. So if you were to look at the graph, what you can see is that the AS with the Chinese trade, um, uh, that line moved down. And so you get more consumer surplus. At the same time, there are market trends that make it a little complex. Chinese producers were up to the task. The Chinese folding bike market had a cumulative growth rate predicted of over 10%. There's also things like a direct response, such as a word of mouth, which can shift consumer trends towards quantity over quality. So again, if you look at the graph, you can see that bikes over $381, they really lost out. And that button is actually producer surplus loss. And so you get a big increase in bicycles for a relatively smaller increase in decrease in price. Excuse me. For the international trade methodology, it was really built around elasticity. So what we can see is Chinese dumping led to concurrent elastic response in industry demographics. Historically, bicycles are elastic. They go from -4 to 40. 40 is kind of an anomaly, but it's still indicative. In 2022, this first year where Chinese trade was determined, elasticity is 17. Thus, a fall in price precipitates a large increase in the amount of bicycle sales. As a result, high-priced domestic producers like Brompton with iconic brands lose out, and you might see bicycles from China in the range of $100 really kind of dominate the market, creating deadweight loss, social effects, as well as economic effects. So here are some mitigation options. One is, if there's a lot of bikes, there's going to be congestion. So one mitigation option is development. Increase perceptions of safety, increase light segregation on all major roads, urban A roads and urban minor roads. If you look at this graph for pedal cycle, what you can see right away is that, minor roads take up a lot of bike traffic, whereas all major roads and even urban A roads take up little traffic. So there you can see the wands in the picture in the urban minor roads picture, those wands. There's also light segregation, there's plant life, there's curbs that you can invest in. I would divest from investment highway development in lieu for these kind of rural networks. The UK is 12th in Europe as bicycle for main transport for short journeys. The word danger is prevalent in UK culture and society around bicycles. So by changing that perception, you can mitigate the congestion. Mitigation option number 2 is government tax incentives for iconic producers. So there's been a cycle to work, government incentive for employers to provide commuter credits. I would focus on tax credits for e-bikes, such as some of the Brompton models. Those have a longer shelf life. The PMT is the daily person miles traveled. How does the investment really suit that person? Are they, a lot of people buy bikes for 1 month and then they just give up. Here with e-bikes, there seemed to be a longer sustained methodology. And at that same time, when we think about the language of sustainability, I think companies have a chance to create it towards more efficacy and efficiency, and government HR programs that give companies that ability, give HR programs leverage, privilege, and build social welfare. And mitigation option is also 3 is built around quality assurance, plus social welfare. So, one calculation I did was by finding data, for a interval for UK risk of bicycle theft. The government's really focused on funding it. It went from 1.3% down to about 0.9%. Obviously, if you add a lot of bikes to the marketplace based on the 80-20 rule, you'll see an increase in theft. Well, we can do some, quality assurance to see, well, how does that affect demand? Are there shocks? Are there social dead weight losses that create a problem, or are there public bike sharing methodologies that are just as helpful? So those are the 3 mitigation options. Here are my references for slide 2, for slide 3, for slide 4, and for slides 5 and 6. Thank you.